The neon-soaked streets of Neo-Tokyo blurred past as I weaved through the evening traffic on my hoverbike. Another day, another mindless commute. As a biotech engineer, I should have been thrilled by the pulsing heart of human innovation surrounding me. Instead, I felt numb. My comlink chirped, startling me out of my daze. An unfamiliar code flashed across my retinal display. Probably another spam call. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Mr. Jethro Kumar. The voice was crisp, artificial. Speaking, I replied, pulling over to the side of the crowded street. This is an automated message from the Intergalactic Notary Office. We regret to inform you that Sander Zorn of Zeta 9 has passed away. You are listed as the sole beneficiary of his estate. Please report to Orbital Station Alpha at your earliest convenience for further details. The world tilted sideways. Sander dead. My mind reeled, struggling to process the information. I hadn't seen my alien friend in 5 years, not since that fateful conference where we bonded over quantum algorithms and Centurion whiskey. Mr. Kumar, do you understand the message? The AI's voice cut through my shock. Yes, I stammered. I'll be there. The call disconnected, leaving me alone with the cacophony of the city and the thundering of my own pulse. Xander was gone, and he'd left me everything. It didn't make sense. I spent the night in a haze, packing a bag and arranging an indefinite leave of absence from work. By dawn, I was boarding a suborbital shuttle, my stomach churning with a mixture of grief and apprehension. Orbital Station Alpha loomed before us, a gleaming wheel of metal and carbon fiber composites against the star-studded blackness of space. As we docked, my legs felt like lead. What was waiting for me beyond those airlock doors? A prim holographic assistant greeted me, guiding me through a maze of sterile corridors. We finally stopped before an ornate door that seemed wildly out of place in the utilitarian station. Mr. Jethro Kumar for Notary 6, my guide announced. The door swished open, revealing an office that looked like it had been teleported straight out of the 20th century. Rich mahogany bookshelves lined the walls, and an honest-to-God paper and ink ledger sat on an antique desk. Behind that desk sat might not be the right word. Notary 6 was a mass of writhing tentacles contained within an exosuit vaguely resembling a human torso. 2 eye stalks regarded me with an unreadable alien gaze. Ah, Mr. Kumar, please have a seat. The notary's voice was surprisingly melodious. I perched awkwardly on the edge of a leather armchair, feeling like I'd stepped into a surreal dream. I don't understand, I began. Sander and I were friends, but we hadn't spoken in years. Why would he leave me everything? Zix's tentacles rippled in what I assumed was the equivalent of a shrug. Mr. Zorn's motives are not for me to speculate upon. I am here merely to execute his final wishes. A data pad slid across the desk towards me. If you'll place your palm here, we can begin the transfer of assets. I hesitated, my hand hovering above the screen. What exactly am I inheriting? Mr. Zorn's estate includes a luxurious space mansion currently in orbit around Zeta 9, a fleet of 12 merchant-class starships, various holdings and investments across 3 star systems, and, Zix paused, eye stalk swiveling towards the door. Ah, here she is now. The door opened, and the universe stopped. She glided into the room with an ethereal grace that defied the laws of physics. Her skin shimmered with an opalescent sheen, shifting colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Almond-shaped eyes of liquid silver fixed on me, and I felt a jolt of something race through my body. Mr. Kumar, may I present Neela, Mr. Zorn's wife. She is also part of your inheritance. My jaw dropped. I'm sorry, what? I sputtered, looking between Zix and the breathtaking alien woman. People can't be inherited. That's slavery. A melodic chuckle filled the room, and it took me a moment to realize it had come from Neela. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes in a summer breeze. Oh, you misunderstand, Jethro Kumar. I am not property to be owned. I am Ifan, and by the customs of my people, I am now your wife." I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "This is insane. I can't. I mean, I don't even know you." Neela cocked her head to the side, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "And yet you find me attractive, do you not?" Heat rushed to my face. How did she? "Effin are telepaths and empaths," Zix supplied helpfully. "Quite useful in interstellar negotiations, I'm told." Great. Not only was she the most beautiful woman, alien or otherwise, that I'd ever seen, but she could also read my mind. This day couldn't get any more surreal. "Look," I said, trying to regain some semblance of control over the situation. "I'm honored that Sander thought so highly of me, but this is too much. I can't accept all this, especially not a wife." Neela's silver eyes flashed with something that might have been hurt. "You would reject me so quickly without even knowing me." Guilt twisted in my gut. "That's not what I meant. It's just, this is all happening so fast. I need time to process everything." "Time," Zix interjected, "is a luxury we do not have. Mr. Zorn's rivals are already circling, eager to contest the will. If you do not accept the inheritance in its entirety, it will be tied up in intergalactic courts for decades." I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the walls closing in around me. "And if I do accept, then you must travel to Zeta-9 immediately to stake your claim and assume control of Mr. Zorn's business operations," Zix replied. "With Neela at your side as your wife, of course. It is the only way to ensure a smooth transition of power." I looked at Neela, really looked at her. Beyond the otherworldly beauty, I saw intelligence burning in those alien eyes. And something else, a flash of vulnerability quickly masked. "Is this what you want?" I asked her softly. She met my gaze unflinchingly. "What I want is irrelevant. This is my duty, to honor Xander's memory and the tradition of my people." I sighed, knowing I was probably making the biggest mistake of my life. "All right. I'll do it. I'll accept the inheritance and the marriage. Temporarily," I added quickly, "just until we sort this mess out on Zeta-9." Neela's face remained impassive, but I sensed a ripple of something emanating from her. Relief? Anticipation? I couldn't be sure. "Excellent," Zix burbled, his tentacles writhing with what I hoped was excitement. "Place your palm on the datapad, and we'll make it official." As my hand touched the cool surface of the screen, I felt the weight of a dozen star systems settle onto my shoulders. What had I just gotten myself into? The journey begins. "The Star Chaser is prepped and waiting in Docking Bay 7, Zix informed us. "It will take you to Zeta-9 in comfort and style." I nodded numbly, still reeling from the enormity of what I had just agreed to. As Neela and I left the notary's office, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had just changed irrevocably. In the elevator down to the docking bay, I snuck a glance at my new wife. She stood perfectly still, her iridescent skin reflecting the harsh fluorescent lighting. Suddenly, her eyes met mine, and a jolt of electricity seemed to pass between us. I quickly looked away, heat rising to my cheeks, but not before I caught a glimpse of a knowing smile playing at the corners of her mouth. This was going to be a very interesting journey. The Star Chaser cut through Zeta-9's atmosphere like a hot knife through butter. As we descended, the planet's twin suns cast an eerie purple glow across the landscape. Crystalline spires jutted from the ground, their faceted surfaces refracting light in dizzying patterns. "Welcome to Zeta City," Neela's voice purred through the ship's comm system. "I hope you're ready for your grand debut, husband." I grimaced at the word. We'd spent the journey in an uneasy silence, the weight of our sudden marriage hanging between us like a lead curtain. "About that," I began, "don't you think we should discuss?" The ship shuddered violently, cutting me off. Warning klaxons blared as we plummeted toward the ground. What the hell? I wrestled with the controls, but nothing responded. "Neela, what's happening?" Her fingers danced across the console, silver eyes narrowed in concentration. "Someone's hijacked our landing protocols." Hang on. The ground rushed up to meet us. I clenched my teeth, bracing for impact. At the last second, the ship jerked upright, slamming us into our seats as it touched down with bone-jarring force. As the dust settled, I saw we'd landed in what appeared to be a private hangar. A welcoming committee waited outside. If you could call a dozen armed guards and a sneering alien in an expensive suit welcoming. Zorg, Nila hissed, her usual melodic voice edged with venom. I take it he's not a fan, I muttered. Xander's former business partner, and now it seems, our would-be assassin. Great. We've been on the planet for all of 2 minutes, and someone is already trying to kill us. The ship's hatch hissed open. I straightened my jacket, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel. Let me do the talking, I whispered to Nila. She arched an eyebrow. By all means, husband. I'm eager to see how you handle this. We strode down the gangway, Nila's hand resting lightly on my arm. Up close, Zorg was even more intimidating. His skin was a mottled green, covered in what looked like chitinous plates. 4 arms crossed over his massive chest, each ending in wickedly sharp claws. Ah, the new Mrs. Zorn and her pet. Zorg's voice was like gravel in a blender. How kind of you to drop in unannounced in restricted airspace. I forced a smile. Funny, I don't remember seeing any restricted signs on my way to my new home. Zorg's eyes narrowed. Your new home. I think you'll find that Xander's property is still very much in dispute. Really, because the intergalactic notary seemed pretty clear on the matter. I held up my wrist, projecting a holographic copy of the will. Unless you're planning to challenge the ruling off. A clawed hand swiped through the hologram, dissolving it. Listen closely, little human. Xander might have found you amusing, but you don't belong here. Take your little alien and go back to whatever backwater planet spawned you, or things will get unpleasant. Rage boiled in my gut. I stepped forward, fists clenched. You son of a... Nila's hand on my chest stopped me. I felt a wave of calm wash over me, clearly not my own. Her voice rang out, clear and commanding. You forget yourself, Zorg. I am effin', bound to Jethro by custom and law. To insult him is to insult me, and by extension, my entire race. Are you prepared for the diplomatic consequences of such an action? Zorg's face twisted in barely contained fury, but I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. This isn't over, he snarled. Enjoy your stay while it lasts. He spun on his heel, stalking away with his armed entourage. As soon as they were out of earshot, my legs nearly gave out. Holy! I breathed. That was intense. Nila's lips quirked in a small smile. Welcome to Zeta 9 politics, husband. I hope you're a quick study. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings, legal briefings, and thinly veiled threats. I felt like I was drowning in an ocean of alien intrigue, barely keeping my head above water. Nila was a constant presence at my side, guiding me through the complex web of alliances and vendettas that made up Zeta 9's power structure. Her telepathic abilities proved invaluable, allowing her to sense the true intentions behind honeyed words and false smiles. One evening, as we retired to Xander, now our opulent mansion, I collapsed onto a ridiculously comfortable couch. I don't know how much more of this I can take, I groaned, rubbing my temples. How did Xander manage all this? Nila gracefully lowered herself beside me. He had years of experience. And me. She hesitated, then placed a cool hand on my forehead. If you'll allow me, I can help ease your stress. I tensed instinctively. We'd maintained a careful distance since arriving, the strange intimacy of our marriage and unspoken tension between us. But right now, the pounding in my head overrode any hesitation. All right, I murmured, closing my eyes. Her fingertips pressed gently against my skin, and suddenly I felt something. A presence brushing against the edges of my consciousness. It was alien, yet somehow familiar. Relax, Nila's voice whispered, both aloud and inside my mind. Don't fight it. Let me in. I took a deep breath and tried to lower my mental defenses. Slowly, carefully, I felt Neela's presence seep into my thoughts. It was like cool water flowing through my mind, soothing raw nerves and washing away the day's tensions. That's incredible, I breathed. This is only the beginning, Neela said softly. With practice, we could achieve a much deeper connection. It's how my people communicate, share experiences, love. My eyes snapped open at that last word. Neela was closer than I'd realized, her silver eyes searching mine. For a moment, I was lost in their depths, feeling the ghost of emotions that weren't my own. Curiosity, longing, and something deeper I couldn't quite name. I cleared my throat, breaking the spell. Aya, thank you. That really helped. Neela withdrew her hand, and I immediately missed the connection. You're welcome, Jethro. Perhaps tomorrow we can begin some proper lessons in telepathic communication. It will be essential for navigating Zeta 9 society. Over the next few weeks, Neela and I fell into a routine. By day, we attended endless meetings and social functions, slowly solidifying our position among Zeta 9's elite. By night, Neela taught me the basics of telepathic communication. It was during one of these lessons that everything changed. A deeper connection. Focus, Jethro, Neela chided gently. We sat cross-legged on the floor of her meditation chamber, facing each other. Clear your mind of all distractions. Feel the energy flowing between us. I tried, I really did, but it was hard to focus on anything but the way the soft light played across Neela's iridescent skin or the graceful curve of her neck. A musical laugh echoed in my mind. Your thoughts are broadcasting quite loudly, you know. I flushed, mortified. Sorry. Don't apologize. Neela's eyes sparkled with amusement. It's flattering, and not unwelcome. My heart raced. Was she saying what I thought she was saying? Before I could form a coherent response, alarms blared throughout the mansion. We leaped to our feet, the moment shattered. Intruder alert, an AI voice announced. Unknown assailants have breached the perimeter. Neela's eyes went wide. Zorg. He's making his move. We raced through the corridors, the sound of weapons fire growing closer. As we rounded a corner, a plasma bolt sizzled past my ear, leaving an acrid smell of ozone in its wake. Get down. Neela tackled me, her body shielding mine as we hit the floor. More bolts flew overhead, scorching the wall behind us. I fumbled for the sidearm I'd taken to carrying, but Neela's hand on my wrist stopped me. Her eyes glowed with an inner light, and suddenly the air around us shimmered. Our attackers, 3 burly aliens with nasty-looking weapons, rounded the corner, but their eyes slid right past us, as if we weren't there. A telepathic illusion, Neela whispered in my mind. But I can't hold it for long. We need to move. Slowly, carefully, we crept past the confused assailants. We'd almost made it to the end of the corridor when one of them let out a bellow of rage. There, the mind witch is clouding our senses. The illusion shattered like glass. Neela stumbled, clearly drained from the effort. Without thinking, I scooped her into my arms and ran. Plasma bolts whizzed past us as I careened through the mansion's winding halls, my lungs burning and muscles screaming in protest. But the steady weight of Neela in my arms drove me forward. We burst into Xander's old study, and I slammed the door behind us, engaging the security locks. That won't hold them for long, Neela said weakly, extracting herself from my arms. We need a way out. I scanned the room frantically, my eyes landing on an ornate bookshelf. Wait a second. This is too cliché to be real, but I ran my hands along the shelf, searching for anything out of place. There, a book that didn't quite fit with the others. I pulled it, and with a pneumatic hiss, the entire shelf slid aside to reveal a hidden passage. Xander, you beautiful, paranoid bastard, I laughed. We ducked inside just as the door to the study exploded inward. The passage led us to a small, sleek spacecraft docked in a concealed hangar. As the ship rocketed away from the mansion, I finally allowed myself to breathe. That was too close. Are you all right? Neela nodded, though she looked pale, or as pale as her opalescent skin could manage. I'll be fine. That level of telepathic exertion is draining, but it was necessary. You saved my life back there. I reached out, taking her hand in mine. Thank you. She smiled, interlacing her fingers with mine. We saved each other, I think. As Zeta 9 receded behind us, I realized two things with startling clarity. First, that I was irrevocably intertwined with Neela's fate. And second, that I had just made a powerful enemy in Zorg. This was only the beginning. Settling in. The Star Chaser glided through the vast expanse of space, its sleek design cutting through the void with ease. I sat in the cockpit, staring out at the endless stars, my mind racing with the events of the past few days. Neela sat beside me, her presence a calming anchor in the storm of my thoughts. We'll need to lay low for a while, Neela said, breaking the silence. Zorg won't give up easily. He'll be watching for any sign of us. I nodded, my grip tightening on the controls. Do you have any ideas on where we can go? Neela's eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief. I know just the place. There's a small, uncharted moon on the edge of the Zeta system. It's a bit rough around the edges, but it's the perfect place to disappear for a while. I raised an eyebrow. And how do you know about this place? Neela's smile widened. Let's just say I've had to lay low a few times in the past. Trust me, it's safe. All right, I said, setting a course for the moon. Let's hope you're right. As we approached the moon, I could see what Neela meant by rough around the edges. The surface was pockmarked with craters, and jagged mountains jutted up from the barren landscape. But as we descended, I saw a small settlement nestled in a valley, hidden from prying eyes. We landed the Star Chaser on the outskirts of the settlement, and Neela led me to a modest building that looked like it had seen better days. Welcome to our temporary home, she said, pushing open the door. Inside, the building was surprisingly cozy. The main room was filled with mismatched furniture, and a fireplace crackled in the corner, casting a warm glow over the space. Neela led me to a small bedroom at the back, where a simple bed and a few pieces of furniture awaited us. It's not much, but it'll do for now, Neela said, sitting on the edge of the bed. We should be safe here for a while. I sat beside her, the reality of our situation sinking in. Neela, I don't know how to thank you. You've saved my life more times than I can count in the past few days. Neela reached out, placing a hand on my cheek. We're in this together, Jethro. Xander trusted you, and now I do too. We'll get through this, one step at a time. I nodded, feeling the surge of determination. You're right. We'll figure this out. The days on the moon passed in a blur of routine. We spent our mornings exploring the settlement, making connections with the locals and gathering supplies. In the afternoons, Neela continued my telepathic training, helping me to hone my abilities and understand the intricacies of effin communication. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Neela turned to me with a serious expression. Jethro, there's something you need to know. The reason Zorg is so determined to find us is because of what Xander left you. It's not just his estate and business. There's something else, something powerful. I frowned, leaning forward. What do you mean? Neela took a deep breath. Xander was working on a project, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. He called it the Omega Protocol. It's a weapon, but it's also much more than that. It's a way to control the very fabric of reality. My eyes widened. And Zorg wants it. Neela nodded. Yes, if he gets his hands on it, he'll have the power to reshape the galaxy as he sees fit. That's why we have to find it first, and why we have to keep it out of his hands at all costs. I felt a chill run down my spine. Where is it? Neela shook her head. I don't know. Xander never told me. But he left clues, hidden in his estate. We'll have to go back to Zeta 9, find those clues, and piece together the location of the Omega Protocol. I swallowed hard. the weight of the task ahead settling on my shoulders. Then we need to be careful. Zorg will be watching for any sign of us. Neela's eyes met mine, a steely determination in her gaze. We'll find it, Jethro. I believe in us. As I looked into her eyes, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, we would unravel the mystery of the Omega Protocol and stop Zorg from gaining unimaginable power. The future of the galaxy depended on it. The hunt for the Omega Protocol. The journey back to Zeta 9 was fraught with tension. We had to move carefully, avoiding Zorg's patrols and staying off the main trade routes. Neela's knowledge of the system's hidden pathways proved invaluable, and after several days of cautious travel, we finally reached the outskirts of Zeta City. We can't just walk in the front door, I said as we hovered above the city in the Star Chaser. Zorg's men will be watching. Neela nodded, her eyes scanning the landscape below. There's a network of underground tunnels that lead to the estate. Sander used them for smuggling operations. We can use them to get inside undetected. How do you know so much about Sander's operations? I asked, curiosity getting the better of me. Neela's expression softened. Xander and I were close. He trusted me with many of his secrets. He knew that one day his enemies might come for him, and he wanted me to be prepared. I nodded, a pang of sadness tugging at my heart. Xander had been a good friend, and I wished I had known him better. Let's do it, then. We landed the Star Chaser in a secluded area on the outskirts of the city, and Neela led me to a hidden entrance to the tunnels. The air inside was damp and musty, and the dim lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls. We moved silently, our footsteps echoing in the narrow passageways. After what felt like hours of navigating the labyrinthine tunnels, we finally emerged in a storage room beneath the estate. Neela carefully pushed open the door, peeking out to ensure the coast was clear. All right, we're in. The first clue should be in Sander's study. We made our way through the estate, sticking to the shadows and avoiding the patrolling guards. Sander's study was exactly as I remembered it, filled with books and strange artifacts from his travels. Neela moved to the bookshelf, pulling out a book and flipping through the pages. Here, she said, pointing to a series of symbols on one of the pages. This is the first clue. It's a map, but it's encoded. We'll need to find the other clues to decode it. As we examined the book, a noise from the hallway made us freeze. Footsteps. We quickly hid behind the desk, holding our breaths as the door creaked open. A guard entered, scanning the room with a suspicious gaze. I felt Neela's hand on my arm, her presence a calming force as we waited. After a tense moment, the guard left, and we exhaled in relief. That was too close, I whispered. Neela nodded, her expression grim. We need to move quickly. The next clue should be in the library. We made our way to the library, dodging guards and avoiding surveillance cameras. The library was even more impressive than the study, with towering shelves filled with books from floor to ceiling. Neela led me to a section dedicated to ancient alien texts, pulling out a dusty tome. This is it, she said, opening the book to reveal another series of symbols. The second clue. We're getting closer. As we continued our search, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every creak and whisper seemed amplified in the silent halls of the estate. Finally, we found the last clue in Sander's private quarters, hidden in a painting of a distant star system. We have all the pieces, Neela said, laying out the clues on a table. Now we just need to decode the map. I watched in awe as Neela's fingers danced across the symbols, her mind working faster than I could comprehend. Within minutes, she had deciphered the location of the Omega Protocol. It's on a hidden moon, deep within the Zeta system, she said, her eyes alight with triumph. We have to go there. Now. As we made our way back to the Star Chaser, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap. Zorg was cunning, and I had no doubt that he would be waiting for us. But we had no choice. The fate of the galaxy rested on our shoulders. We took off, heading for the hidden moon with a sense of urgency. Neela sat beside me in the cockpit, her eyes focused and determined. "We can do this, Jethro. Together." I nodded, gripping the controls tightly. Together. The final confrontation. The hidden moon loomed before us, its surface bathed in the eerie light of Zeta 9's twin suns. We landed the Star Chaser in a secluded clearing, and Neela led the way to the entrance of an underground facility. The air was thick with tension as we descended into the depths of the moon, our footsteps echoing in the silent corridors. "We're close," Neela whispered, her eyes scanning the dimly lit passageways. "The Omega Protocol should be just ahead." As we rounded a corner, a blast of energy shot past us, narrowly missing my head. Zorg and his men stood at the end of the corridor, weapons drawn and eyes filled with malice. Well, Zorg sneered. "I knew you'd come for the Omega Protocol. Did you really think you could outsmart me?" I felt a surge of anger, but Neela's hand on my arm kept me grounded. "Zorg, this ends now. The Omega Protocol is too dangerous to be in your hands." Zorg laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can stop me? You're nothing but a pathetic human and a mind witch. I will reshape the galaxy, and there's nothing you can do about it." I clenched my fists, ready to charge, but Neela stepped forward, her eyes glowing with a fierce light. "You underestimate us, Zorg. We've come too far to let you win." With a wave of her hand, Neela unleashed a telepathic wave, disorienting Zorg and his men. I took the opportunity to rush forward, tackling Zorg to the ground. We grappled, fists flying as we fought for control. Neela engaged the other guards, her telepathic abilities allowing her to anticipate their movements and strike with precision. It was a brutal battle, but we fought with everything we had, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Finally, with a surge of strength, I managed to pin Zorg to the ground, my hand around his throat. "It's over, Zorg," I growled, my voice filled with determination. Zorg's eyes blazed with fury, but he knew he was beaten. "You think you've won? This is far from over." I tightened my grip, my gaze locked on his. "You're wrong. It's over." With a final burst of energy, Neela incapacitated the remaining guards, and we stood victorious in the dimly lit corridor. My heart pounded in my chest, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. "We did it," I breathed, turning to Nyla. "We actually did it." Neela's eyes softened, and she stepped closer, her hand resting on my cheek. "Yes, we did. Together." As we made our way to the chamber housing the Omega Protocol, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The device was unlike anything I had ever seen, a complex array of technology that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. "We need to destroy it," Neela said, her voice resolute. "It's too dangerous to exist." I nodded, my mind racing with the implications. But how? Neela's eyes met mine, a determined glint in their silver depths. "With your help. Together, we can channel our energies and dismantle it." We stood before the Omega Protocol, our hands joined and our minds connected. I felt the familiar presence of Neela's consciousness brush against mine, and together we focused our energies on the device. The room filled with a blinding light as we worked, our combined power unraveling the intricate web of technology. It was an exhausting process, but we pressed on, driven by the knowledge that we were protecting the galaxy from unimaginable destruction. Finally, with a final surge of energy, the Omega Protocol disintegrated, its power dissipating into the air. We collapsed to the ground, our bodies and minds spent from the effort. "It's done," Neela whispered, her voice filled with relief. I nodded, a sense of peace washing over me. We did it. As we lay there, exhausted but triumphant, I realized that this was only the beginning. Together, Neela and I had faced incredible challenges and emerged stronger for it. And whatever the future held, I knew we could face it together. A new beginning. The journey back to Zeta 9 was one of quiet reflection. We had faced immense danger and emerged victorious, but the weight of our actions still lingered in my mind. Neela sat beside me in the cockpit, her presence a comforting reminder of the bond we had forged. As we approached Zeta City, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Our victory over Zord had changed everything, and now it was time to rebuild and move forward. We landed the Star Chaser at the estate, greeted by the familiar sight of the opulent mansion. Neela and I stood on the front steps, looking out at the sprawling city below. "We've come a long way," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. Neela nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Yes, we have. And there's still so much to do." Over the next few weeks, we worked tirelessly to stabilize Skander's estate and ensure the safety of the Omega Protocol's remnants. Zorg's influence had waned, but there were still those who sought to exploit the power we have destroyed. Neela and I attended meetings with the leaders of Zeta 9, forging alliances and strengthening our position. Her telepathic abilities continued to be an invaluable asset, allowing us to navigate the complex web of politics with ease. One evening, as we sat on the balcony overlooking the city, Neela turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Jethro, there's something I've been meaning to ask you." I looked at her, curiosity piqued. "What is it?" She hesitated, her eyes searching mine. "Now that we've secured the estate and dismantled the Omega Protocol, what's next for us? Do you plan to stay here on Zeta 9, or do you have other plans?" I took a deep breath, considering her question. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of events, and I hadn't had much time to think about the future. "I don't know," I admitted. "But one thing I do know is that I don't want to do it alone." Neela's eyes softened, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Neither do I." As we sat there, the city lights twinkling in the distance, I felt a sense of clarity. The future was uncertain, but with Neela by my side, I knew we could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, we had navigated the treacherous waters of interstellar politics, thwarted a dangerous adversary, and dismantled a weapon of unimaginable power. And through it all, we had forged a bond that transcended the boundaries of our respective species. "Whatever comes next," I said, taking Neela's hand in mine, "we'll face it together." She smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "Yes, we will." As the stars above us glittered like 1,000 distant suns, I knew that this was only the beginning of our journey. Together, we would explore new worlds, face new challenges, and build a future that was truly our own. And as long as we had each other, there was nothing we couldn't overcome.